Today, I'm going to talk about compounders and businesses that become the 100 baggers essentially, and sort of give you the condensed essence of what you want to look for if you're looking for 100 to 1. Now, even if you're not looking for 100x, some of these principles are very good as they apply across the board in terms of your investing, and can sort of help you if you can sort of recognize these hallmarks. The first being is that you want to look for a business with high returns on invested capital. For context, if a business can return anything above 12-10% historically, that's considered pretty good. But if you're looking for 100 baggers, I mean, you're looking for about at least 20-30% a year return on invested capital, which is really high. I know it's a high bar to set, but there's a reason why 100 baggers are uncommon. That's the first one. Number two is you've got something that's compounding at a high rate, and the second thing is you want a long time of runway for this to occur. So you want to see that there is potential for this to sort of keep compounding over the next 20-30 years. This is sort of the time span we're talking about. So to summarize, 1, high return on invested capital, 2, long runway ahead, and 3 is sort of a fair valuation. Now, this isn't always the case, but it does help if you can pay a modest valuation for this business, because then you have room for multiple expansion. So what I mean by this is, for example, if a business is, say, it's returning capital about 30% a year, and revenues and net income are growing up at about that pace as well, meaning that it's got 30% net income growth a year, and it's got room to run for the next 20 years. Well, we know 26% a year every 10 years is about a 10x. So that could be a 10x in 10 years and 100x in 20 years. But let's say we want to smash out of the park. We want to get even better than that. And let's say we bought this company at a P ratio of 16 times earnings. I think for a business that's been compounding at 30% a year, I wouldn't be surprised if it commands a P ratio of about 48 times earnings or 32 times earnings. And why am I saying those exact numbers? Because they're about a double to triple in P ratio, meaning that the multiple expansion could sort of double or triple. Therefore, you've had 100x off the fact that it's compounded over 20 years, but you've also had an additional 3x or 2x on top of it as a result of multiple expansion, meaning that your 100x times 3x makes it a total 300x over the invested period. Now, of course, it is unlikely for you to come by these businesses, but that's what makes them so rare, is because these criteria are very high standards, and not every business can obviously meet such standards. They are there, but they are hard to find. I've personally found one recently, but it's not within the US. Perhaps opening your search criteria may be something, if you're up for it, maybe something to do. I am conscious, though, it has to be within your circle of competence. If you are based in a different market outside the US, perhaps there's something there, or if you are willing to go through the nitty-gritty small caps. Another thing they often mention is that the market cap is typically about 400 million or sub $1 billion range, because it is very hard to 100x from a 10 billion market cap. Now, it is doable, of course, like PayPal and Apple and Microsoft, they're all there, but the likelihood of that happening is much lower. You could probably still get a 10x, don't get me wrong, 10 billion to 100 billion, that's doable, but for most businesses, 100x from 10 billion is much less doable. So keep in mind the market cap as well. They're sort of all the main things. There have been instances as well where businesses have done share buybacks on the outstanding stock that on the outstanding capital they've had after reinvesting it. So that sort of takes away the shares every year. So that sort of reduces the float by an additional 3% every year, and that will aid the compounding, especially over those 10-20 years. I believe Monish mentions Coparts, or that's a good business, which not just Monish but a lot of investors have mentioned has done quite well over the past. So if you can find anything to summarize, high return on capital, with a long runway at a fair, modest PE ratio, although it doesn't always have to be the case, and even better, doing share buybacks. Yeah, I think it's highly likely you're onto a winner. Of course, this isn't an investing advice. This is not for that. This is purely for educational and entertainment purposes. These are sort of the hallmarks I've sort of noticed. There we go. That's it for today.